We have a quorum, so we will get started. And our first order of business is approval of the minutes. We got to do roll call. Oh, roll call, I'm sorry. Yes, you just said that.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Councilmember Wynn?
Here.
Councilmember Newsma?
Here.
Councilmember Burns?
Here.
Councilmember Suffredin?
Here.
Councilmember Ravel?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Okay. So our first order of business is approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of September 13th. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, and no corrections, I assume? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Suffredin?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Okay, so what I thought we'd do is for each item as it comes up on the agenda, we would take the public comment for that item. And so we're going to start with item P1. And I'll just make the motion just to get it on the table, and then we'll have the public comment. So I move introduction of ordinance 111-0-21, granting a 12-month extension to obtain a building permit for the construction of a planned development at 1900 Sherman.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll,
Second, sorry.
Okay. And so I think we have someone online who would like to offer public comment.
Yeah, Bruce Annenbach? Is Bruce Annenbach available?
Or is there anyone who is in attendance in the room who wanted to make comment on that item? I don't think. Okay, well then, let's open it up to committee discussion. Any comments from the committee? Councilmember Kelly.
So it seems like this is premature and maybe irrelevant since the project right now will be returning to P&D and Council for consideration after going through Plan Commission, which has an upcoming hearing.
Well, Johanna.
So that's under consideration for a major adjustment. This would be an extension of the ordinance let me start over. This is an extension to the ordinance that was approved last fall. So it's an extension of that. That's what this about. P1 is an extension of that ordinance. What's at Plan Commission would be a major adjustment to that ordinance. So it's two different treatments to effectively the same ordinance.
Right, but they can't, that building, it couldn't go forward without the major adjustment, and it's no longer C1, correct? Because they're not building commercial. It doesn't, so it's really not the same. It really does have to go through plan. It seems to me it really has to go through Plan Commission before coming here for this, because it's a major adjustment that would preclude it being built at all.
So it's an extension of, that's what this, P1 is an extension of that ordinance. What's at Plan Commission would be a major.
This is Bruce Annenbach.
So it's two different treatments to effectively the same ordinance.
I'm getting various audio.
Yeah, what's going on?
Mr. Innenbach, you must be watching on YouTube or
I'm
on
sorry?
a separate. Are you watching on a separate platform?
I hope
Background?
not. I'll check.
It doesn't, so it's really not the same. It really does have to go through plan. It seems to me it really has to go through Plan Commission. So coming here for this.
You must be watching on YouTube.
For the things that
Let's answer Councilmember Kelly's question, and then we'll go to Mr. Ehrenbach for his comment. So,
Okay, I think I'm okay now.
okay, well, let's go. Yeah, go.
Perhaps.
We're welcome and make your public comment.
Was that addressed to Bruce Annenbach?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm sorry, I was
that's
having
for
trouble
you.
getting it.
Yes.
Not a problem. Can I proceed?
Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, with respect to extending the time up to obtain a building permit for the 1900 Sherman Avenue development, This should be considered premature and irrelevant, as the project itself will be returning to P&D and Council for its consideration appropriately and is customary after the Plan Commission consideration, which has an upcoming hearing this coming Wednesday. This project has changed considerably. The sole reason for by the applicant's own admission to ask for C1A no longer exists with this change. It is no longer C1A. It is now R6 and must be reconsidered as such. Also, and very importantly, this project has uncovered significant foundation and structural challenges which need to be addressed by the city, by an experienced, qualified, independent structural engineering firm before any approval may be given. Please reject this irrelevant extension. And thank you very much. Sorry about the problems.
Yeah, thank you. But really, there are two different items that are coming to planning and development eventually. One is still pending at the Plan Commission to talk about these major variations, but what's before us tonight is merely the extension of the time to obtain a building permit. And this is something that happens routinely with plan developments. I can't think of a plan development that just went right through and managed to not need to come for an extension. So this is a pretty straightforward request, and unrelated to the question that's still before the Plan Commission. Other comments from other council members? Councilmember Nguyen.
Well, just to agree with you, Madam Chair, that this is a very regular occurrence that we have had with development over the years to request a continuation of the time period and we regularly grant them. The only time I can think of one where we didn't was it was the third extension, if I recall. And at that point, we realized that we needed to help the developer realize that they were not going to be building the building. So, but this is very routine, especially in this construction environment that we're in.
Councilmember Kelly.
Chair.
Yeah, so I understand
Chair,
that
I'm
it's,
sorry, I'm seeking recognition, and Councilmember Kelly's spoken already on this issue.
Sorry, it's hard to tell.
No, apologies. No way you would have known.
So, go ahead, yes.
Yes, I think, as folks are saying here, it's routine, so it likely makes sense to support this. But if it is routine that folks have to come back for this extension, I'm wondering if maybe staff can explain what is the normal time frame, and maybe if it's a large percentage of people who are coming back for these extensions, maybe we should look at just changing the policy on how long we give folks in the first place, so we don't have these. So this isn't, so we can reduce the routineness of asking for extensions if it should just be built into the system in the first place.
Staff, do you have a comment?
Sure. So generally, it's a 12-month. We hope that they can pull a building permit within 12 months. Sometimes their attorneys will indicate there might be something particularly challenging about the project, or they need a little extra time. So sometimes I can't think of off the top of my head of one that might have had longer. Some of the extensions have gone to 18 months when they return. But usually, we want to keep these things standardized to 12 months so that we set the expectation that you should be building within 12 months. And then when they do return, we often have new due diligence that's been completed and information that can better give a sense as to when they think they'll be able to complete the building. So I would add supply chains, I'm sure everyone has heard, are very challenging right now as well. So obtaining materials, obtaining labor continue to be a challenge for all builders at all levels of projects. So I think you're going to see this to some extent, but I'd rather more closely manage it by having them return and have to provide justification to the residents and to this council as to why they have to take a little bit longer than anticipated.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
So thank you for your patience. As I don't have any, I understand that this would be frequent and regular to get extensions on permitting, but I guess I just want to understand, is it also normal to be still at the plan commission stage? And again, it's not like they're at plan commission stage just to, redesign of a doorway or something. I mean, it's the foundation. So I'm just wondering, is that normal too, to be at plan commission and then also to be at P&D before going through plan commission is that normal and regular?
I can think of another project where we've granted extensions and they've had to do minor adjustments because changes that I'm talking about in terms of construction modalities or access to things result in changes to the building or changes
This is
in the
major,
market.
though. And in this case, it's a major adjustment. That's what I'm just.
Right, in this case, it's a major adjustment. So, I think in an ideal world, they would have discovered this a while ago and had done the major adjustment 6 months ago, 7 months ago, but that's not what happened. This is what we're here to sometimes that due diligence to figure out where the foundation is, and given the challenges that we've experienced with COVID and getting people to the site and changing those things, it just hasn't been as fast as I think it would have been in pre-COVID times. So I don't want to speak too much to their particular situation, but both of these are totally different things to address the approved ordinance. So one is an extension, and one is to adjust that plan development. So there could be a situation where in these major adjustments that we've seen, is they're still doing the due diligence, and they might be, a different development might be asking for additional time for due diligence, which is what they're kind of ahead of the curve here in terms of figuring that, which is why we'd have the major adjustment.
Okay, thank you. It just seems like there could be cases where especially the major adjustment, where that could get, I mean, I don't know, I'm not saying in this case it will, but it just seems like it would be safer to have that get approved and then go for it. But anyway, thank you for explaining it. Okay.
Councilmember Nguyen.
My memory may be a little flawed on this, but the northwest corner of Main in Chicago, the building that's been there now for well over 10 years, had, if not quite similar, but they discovered after they had a building design that the design of the building that they were planning, that the foundation, that the subsoils simply would not have handled the building that they were designing. And, at the time, they had fine architects and good civil engineers, but did come back to us and said, we're going to have to make adjustments, and we gave them an extension. So in the sense of having something that is somewhat similar and having had that occur, we have done that before. And to address Councilmember Reed's point, if this were a constant, I would say, yes, I agree with you. But we have had developments come through and get their permits and start within the 12 months. But it is over time, there was a shortage of steel from China that caused problems for 2 or 3 years, and then that was worked out. And I agree with Director Nyden that we want to kind of hold developers' feet to the fire and make sure that they're making all best efforts and have to demonstrate to us why they haven't started yet. It's not unusual to do this, but at this point, we really do want to push them to move forward. And if they can't, that they come back and talk to us about it.
Councilmember Kelly.
So it's not to object to it, but I just want to say it is then somewhat unusual to be going through the plan commission with a major adjustment, to be going first to P&D for, I just want to say that is somewhat unusual, right? That's not often where a plan would come to P&D before fulfilling its, presentation to Plan Commission for a major adjustment, that this is somewhat unusual.
Yeah. No, I would say that this sequence is unusual, but, they've run into a timing problem, and so that's why we're doing the one first. Any further conversation, discussion from the members of the committee? Then it's been moved and seconded to introduce ordinance 111-0-21, granting a 12-month extension to obtain a building permit for the construction of a planned development at 1900 Sherman. Would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen. Aye. Councilmember Nuzma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Suffredin?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, that will be moved on to City Council for introduction. So now we're ready for item P2, and just to get this introduced, I'm going to move introduction of Ordinance 116-0-21, amending the City of Evanston's leaf blower policy, removing it from the noise ordinance in Title IX of the City Code and placing it under Title VIII, is that right, of Health and Sanitation. Is there a second? Okay, and we have some public comment, I believe. Mike O'Connor?
Good evening, council members. I'm Mike O'Connor. I am a resident of the 7th Ward, and I serve on the Board of Trustees at Canal Shores. I'm joined this evening by Tony Frandria, who is our superintendent of grounds and general manager for the course. I have a brief statement I'd like to read for your consideration. Canal Shores sits on 82 acres of public green space located in both the city of Evanston and the village of Wilmette. Approximately 55 acres of this space is located within the city of Evanston, and of those 55 acres, only 20 are considered in-play areas that must be maintained to play the game of golf. That equates to the maintenance and management of roughly 25% of the acreage of our Audubon certified property. The use of blowers is an imperative tool that allows us to provide our patrons playing areas clean of debris on not only greens, but also on tees and fairways. We use blowers to clear off debris such as leaves, twigs, and the like, so that they do not damage the blades of our equipment, and to have the playing surface as clear as possible from anything that will affect golf balls as they roll across the ground. Through much of the golf season, flower petals, cottonwood, seeds, leaves, and twigs fall onto the course or blown onto the course, and they need to be cleared on nearly a daily basis. So Canal Shores has already purchased and begun using battery-powered backpack blowers as of this past spring to maintain our putting greens when the cleaning job is light. However, this type of technology is not currently available for blowers needed to clear the more vast areas like the fairways and the tee boxes, and even the greens when they're heavily debrised. To clear these areas, we must use a more powerful, sometimes called a buffalo blower. And, when a sufficiently powerful blower of this type becomes available in a battery form, we'll migrate to it just the same way we have with the backpack blowers. All this being stated, Canal Shores is respectfully requesting that the following language change in the proposed City of Evanston ordinance. In Section 826.8, under exceptions, the second exception, golf greens, should be deleted and in its place should refer to in-play areas of the golf course. These additional areas would include, of course, the tees and the fairways. Canal Shores prides itself on its commitment to the ecology of the property and is steadfast in preserving the property in the most sustainable, environmentally sensitive way possible, now and in the future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And we did not have any online signups, no? Anybody else in the room? Okay, Councilmember Wynn.
Yes, I just had one question for the speaker. So when you were saying you migrated to backpack leaf blowers, did you mean to say electric?
Yes,
Okay.
They're battery powered and recharged through an electricity plug-in.
So
Yes.
non-gasoline or propane powered?
Non-gas powered, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Do we have a copy of that language, possibly?
I think
believe we
Councilmember
do.
Newsom's
Okay.
ready.
Yeah.
Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to amend the ordinance as the speaker requested. This is something I emailed in anticipation of this comment, did email council earlier this evening. So just to restate the amendment, It would be to Section 8-26-8, exceptions, to strike the words golf greens and insert the words in play areas of a golf course.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion of the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. So I'm curious. I am not a golfer, so can someone please explain to me one more once what the difference between the golf greens and play area is?
I had the same question, Councilmember Reed, because I am also not a golfer. I thought golf greens was the entire golf course. Golf green is really just the flat, real short, crew-cut grass where you do the putting.
So tee box is where you tee off, it's where you start the hole, and then there's the playing area, which gets you to the green, which is where the hole, which, fairway, thank you. I was married to a golf pro for many years, you think I know this, but, and then you get to the hole, which is the green, which is the shorter grass, which is the more challenging area potentially to get in the hole.
Does that answer your question,
So we're
Councilmember?
providing an exception here to allow, to not require, I'm sorry, to not require that they use the electric powered blowers and mowers for this area?
That's correct. We have 3 exceptions listed in the proposed ordinance, and this is amending one of those exceptions as it pertains to the golf course.
Yes. Okay. I'd like to also, I mean, this isn't to the motion, so I'll save most of the comment, but I would also like to see the city, my assumption is that the city is one of those 3 exemptions, and I would love for us to be meeting these goals. I think the city should be leading on CARP. I've heard the discussion before that we have a large, amount of land to care for, but I think we should be leading on this as well.
Right. Well, the city is going to be challenged to comply with the ordinance because the only exception for the city in terms of our landscape, the grass, et cetera, is the city baseball fields and the artificial turf fields, but all of our 72 parks will have to be maintained with, per the amended policy. So we are, the city is going to be challenged to make that transition.
We're including ourselves, not
Right.
just challenging, like, go for it, maybe try and see if you can get it, but the city is going to comply to this.
Right, exactly, yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Kelly, and then Councilmember.
I just want to say that's great, and thanks for all your work on this. It's very exciting to think about April of '23, right? When this will be in place.
Right.
Thank you for your work.
Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, so it says, under penalties, any person who uses a leaf blower or permits the private or commercial use of a leaf blower on their property in violation of this chapter shall be subject to the following penalties. So did that say, like, whoever we come across first? So if it's a worker, then they're fined, and if we're able to come across the homeowner or the property owner, then they're fined? How does, who is ultimately eligible to, for fines?
So that language is actually currently in the ordinance, and it is applicable either to the property owner or to generally the company that's hiring the worker rather than the worker him or herself.
And then I know there's been ongoing questions about enforcement.
Right. Yeah. Enforcement we still need to have further conversations about how to have fair and effective enforcement. So we'll be continuing that conversation. We know that we need to do more work on figuring out effective enforcement. We also need to do a serious community education effort, both aimed at property owners and at landscape contractors, to help the whole community understand why we are moving in this direction of eliminating gas-powered equipment. So there's a lot of work for us to do before April 2023.
The last question is the landscaping business community, are there any, provisions listed here that are still outstanding concerns outside of enforcement? And I think that was really all I heard was enforcement. I'm just trying to see if there's, is there anything else that the business community, generally speaking, is concerned about related
Well,
to this?
I think for all of them, it's going to be a transition and investment in new equipment. And I think, as we've already been having conversations with city staff about seeing if there's ways for the city to assist with procurement of the electric equipment. So we hope to be able to support our business community as they make that transition.
How are we currently enforcing this?
Well, that's
Have we issued any fines? Plenty?
not many.
And I think that's the concern in terms of fines, is how do we work towards a fair enforcement of it? And so is there, and again, I'm just for argument's sake, should we pass this before we understand how to enforce, if what that will result in is the, inequitable or unfair, however you want to look at it, enforcement of this fine, of this ordinance? That's my concern. How do we make sure it's, I'm not getting calls saying, well, I seem to be targeted by this, and every time I'm out and about using the leaf blower, I'm getting fined, and I see somebody else across town that's using it, and they're never, bothered. Because I get that for other issues like property sales.
Right, yeah.
So I'm just trying to see, how do we
Well, I would say,
respond to
yeah,
that?
I would say we're not doing a good job yet on that score. The change in what we're looking at right here compared to the current ordinance, currently we have just a flat penalty, and so, if you violate more than once, you still have the same penalty. So what we're trying to do is have this more graduated penalty structure so that it gets people's attention. But no, the point that you're making about being fair and, enforcing it across the community, we definitely have more work to do. I think it's a staffing question.
And this is the last.
Okay.
What committee is taking up enforcement then? Because I know I'm going to have some concerned residents after this. Who should I say is working on it? Is there a timeline of when we think we can?
You could share those concerns and comments with me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So Councilmember Wynn, and then Councilmember Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think that you have stated what I was about to say, which is we really have to undertake a serious education process so that people understand that it's multiple factors. It's not just noise, it's the health of the workers, it's the health of all of us having spores and things being blown into the air that remain in the air, pesticides, it's blowing away pollinators, and I think, as I've said before, once people understand that actually this is more harmful to their lawn than many things, that I think they'll go along with the idea that they don't want a lawn that looks like a leaf blower's been used on it. But as I've talked to people, and I think people are gradually realizing that even if they don't care about the noise, the idea that this blows away pollinators bothers them. And so there are lots of different factors. And we also heard from the scientists at Northwestern about the effects of noise on people's ability to think clearly and to learn. So when I have people who have been concerned that their lawn isn't going to look as perfect, when I start talking to them about, do you understand the effects of this, they're surprised. So even though we all hear a lot about this, I think we really have to make a concerted effort to make sure the residents know. And I agree with you, Councilmember Burns. I think actually it should be the residents, the property owners, who get the fine. And so we're talking about how do we make sure that that happens, that if someone isn't complying, it's the people who hire the landscapers, so that they understand that the damage that they're doing to the community, and getting people on board to realize that they don't want to be doing that, So I have some ideas, we all have ideas around the committee, and it's a matter of really talking to people. We have lots of information to give people and pushing that out into the community so people really truly understand.
Councilmember Kelly.
I'd like to thank the community that's been researching leaf blowing, because there has been so much wonderful research describing the negative impacts on our health and on the quality of living. So thank you to the many, many community members who've, done some real deep research on this and provided us with those studies. That was really, really helpful. Also, just on the enforcement, I think currently we have an issue with enforcement. So is the plan to come back and amend this soon? Because even now, as it stands, right, there's an issue. So I'm just wondering what the plan is. And I know there have been some talk of, some people did some research to suggest that maybe it would be best if it was the traffic department. And I think that to me, that does seem like that might be the most effective way to ensure that this is a successful program. And I'd also like to concur with Councilmember Nguyen that I agree. The homeowners, if we could consider having that wording tightened up so that it's the homeowners. I know this, we're going to vote on this, but when we come back with looking at enforcement, I do think it should be the homeowner. Otherwise, even as this is written, it could be one time the company and another time the homeowner, so we might not get to a second or third offense for a long time. And I'd hate to see, we've seen some videos of altercations between residents with the landscape workers, and I don't want to see any of that ever again. So I really, really hope we can just insist that this be all the fines are.
Right. Yeah, I think the enforcement doesn't need to be spelled out in an ordinance. That's something that we need to work out with city staff. Councilmember Burns.
Has there been any discussion about putting this on the homeowner's water bill one, and similar to how we do with other violations, or like a special pickup? I think when we assess those fees, it goes on the water bill. And then two, it'll come back to me once I get a response. I got one more question.
Yeah, but exactly that suggestion has been made as a way to levy the fine, to put it on the water bill. Okay. Yep. But we need to do a lot more conversations. Yeah.
That's what. So the water bill, and then also, do we think this is risen to the point where we should look at some type of license or permit? Because that allows us to have a check-in to where you have to check in, you need to display something. So I'm just throwing stuff out there. I'm sure it's been discussed, but
No. So before you came onto the council, the city council approved a requirement for landscape contractors to register with the city, so that enables us then to communicate with them, remind them about the regulations when it's, the hours or whatever we need to remind them about in terms of our policy, and a way for us to reach out to them with information about electric equipment or, the transition. So
do they have to display anything on the vehicle?
Yeah, when you register, one of the requirements is that you submit a photo of your vehicles that show the name and phone number of the company, so that we can.
When they're out and about, do they have to? Does there need to be some decal or something on the vehicle itself when they're out, so that we can quickly
say they've registered?
Yeah, so we know who's who is in clear, who understands what our current ordinances are.
We don't have the decal yet, but I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
And we've also talked about sending a letter to all of our landscape contractors, asking them to sign a pledge or something about understanding our regulations and their willingness to comply. And then we would have a list on our website of all the contractors who have indicated a willingness to follow our regulations. So there are a lot of carrots that I think we want to pursue in terms of implementing this.
Thank you.
Any other comments from, and we amended it, right?
We have an open amendment we should vote on before.
Okay,
voting on
that was my question. Okay, so could we have a roll call on the amendment to amend golf greens to say in-play areas of golf courses?
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
No.
No.
Okay, that passes. And so now we can vote on the amended motion, which is to introduce ordinance 116-0-21, amending the City of Evanston's leaf blower policy. So would you take the roll, please?
Apologies. Councilmember Sufferton is on this committee as well, correct?
He's just let us
He
know
notified-
that he's, oops.
Oh, okay.
Or,
We both were going to tell you that he notified us that he left the meeting.
yeah, but thanks for the reminder.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, that passes and will be introduced at council this evening. So now we are ready for item P3, which is lessons learned from our Greenleaf Shared Street Pilot Project. And this is to accept and place on file. And do we have a staff? Aha.
We didn't have any, I think Dave was just moving a seat. We don't have a presentation.
Oh,
It was
okay.
just, again, it's
the
just a
memo.
communication and information on the outcome, just so people were aware of.
Okay.
And Jessica Heinck is should be on the Zoom if you have any questions. She
Okay.
took the lead and managed this project for the month of August.
Right, okay. Councilmember Newsma.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jessica, for managing this project and for the robust debrief that's in our packet tonight. I would just want to make sure that among the lessons we take away from this pilot project is the importance of public engagement. Prior to implementing a project, I know that we did mail postcards out to the nearby residents, but if we do this again, would love to have the opportunity to share the idea at ward meetings well in advance, further in advance than just 2 or 3 weeks. So just one more bit of feedback, another lesson learned from the pilot project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee or questions?
Yeah, if Jessica or Ms. Nyden want to provide this, I would just high level, a couple bullet points, takeaways that, the key points that we learned from this endeavor.
Was
I
that,
can take that.
yeah.
Good evening, members of the Planning and Development Committee. My name is Jessica Heinck. I am the Transportation and Mobility Coordinator for the City of Evanston. So the project occurred for a 1-month period on Greenleaf from the channel all the way to the lake shore, and it allow people to get to residential areas, commercial areas, to bike and walk in a safer environment, ideally, than what would normally be allowed with greater traffic. And what we learned was that placing barriers in the parking lane had a very minimal to no effect on reducing traffic and increasing bike and walking traffic. And so typically with a shared street, the barricade is placed in one of the travel lanes, which requires drivers to take turns to access the route. And so the city decided to take a more minimal approach to determine if signage would limit drivers from continuing to utilize Greenleaf. And so that was one big key takeaway, was that was not successful. Another key takeaway from the survey was that community members 68% of community members prefer protected bike lanes over other types of treatment. And then other key takeaways included the amount of maintenance that was required. We had residents who were moving the barricades off of the street entirely, and then we had residents who were moving the barricades to the more traditional space, taking up a lane. And so there was this push and pull between different community members, and the maintenance of that took up quite a bit of staff time, and that was unexpected. And then finally, in order to improve a design of a pilot project like this and to improve community engagement in the future, the cost would increase significantly. And so due to increased costs for pilot projects like this, the city is not looking to do a follow-up pilot in 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Jessica, I had just one question, which, given the strong preference of community members for protected bike lanes, is there a bike lane project, is there a identified area where we'd like to try a protected bike lane next? Funding, if we had funding, or et cetera.
Yes, so the city is currently conducting 3 phase 1 engineering projects. One is on Church Street from Dodge to McDaniel to look at extending the Church Street bike lane, and what has come from the public outreach of that phase 1 engineering project are protected bike lanes to get people safely to the high school and to travel along Church Street on that portion from Dodge to McDaniel. So that is an area where city staff are looking at implementing protected bike lanes. Again, it's a phase 1 engineering study. So then after completion, and provided that community members continue to support the treatment that's been selected, the city will be looking for funding opportunities to complete phase 2 and phase 3 engineering. And then the city is also doing a phase 1 engineering study for Chicago Avenue from the protected bike lanes that end at Davis, and then looking at Chicago Avenue all the way to Howard Street. And the initial preferred treatment that came out of the first public outreach meeting is protected bike lanes potentially. However, there will be additional public outreach meetings to determine a final treatment option. So there's no final determination for a treatment option for that street. However, initial public outreach has preferred protected bike lanes on that route as well.
Great, thank you.
If I may ask one more question.
Sure.
Jessica, thank you for all the information. So I am curious, since we're discussing protected bike lanes in the context of this study, in some other, I don't know if it's being done in America, but do you know if, the Illinois law, whatever it is that, if IDOT would allow us to create bike lanes that, for example, I believe in the Netherlands, their bike lanes use an asphalt that is, or a material that is a different color than the road. It's not a painted thing. It's just the actual pavement is a different color to really create a clear distinction between the area for bikes and the road. Do you know if that is something that would be allowed under Illinois law or under IDOT regulations? And that's if you don't, then, if we can just get back to me on that, that'd be great.
Those type of regulations are covered by MUTCD, and that's at the federal level. And typically, green is the only type of paint that would be allowed as a treatment in bike lanes. However, many communities are shifting away from using green paint in bike lanes due to the very high cost of replacing it. That is the benefit of a protected bike lane, however, is that you have that protection without needing to have that distinct paint treatment.
Great, thank you. Do we need to vote to place something on file? Okay, would you like to? Do we need, Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, just curious how the traffic count data was collected. It seems pretty specific, so I'm just interested in what technology was used to collect the data.
Traffic counts were manually. The city of Evanston does not have traffic counting equipment for pedestrians or bicyclists, and so the only option was to perform the traffic counts manually. So city staff and also volunteers supplemented the traffic counts at various locations throughout the project limits.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess, so we need a motion to accept this and place it on file?
I move that we accept this lessons learned Greenleaf pilot program and place it on file.
And a
Second.
second. Okay, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma,
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And Councilmember Burns.
Aye. You good?
Councilmember Burns.
Okay. And then we have one last item on our agenda, which is P4, an update on electric scooter regulations and electric scooter share programs. And there was a memo in our packet. Does anybody have any questions or comments
I
about?
will
Councilmember
move to
Reed.
place this on. I will move to place this on file. Accept and place on file.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Discussion?
And
Whoops.
Yes,
Go ahead, yes.
yeah, so I appreciate as a new electric scooter rider, I appreciate staff continuing to look into this. I am curious what folks are seeing in the memo. I recall reading that, and just I know Chicago is rolling out a robust scooter program, and the memo, I believe, mentions having some continuity between for travelers going between Evanston and Chicago. So, once we place this on file, is there if staff can give kind of next steps? Maybe I don't think I've missed that in the memo. I don't know if I saw next steps. If we're going to pursue an agreement with with some electric scooter company, if I can just generally get an update on where folks think we're heading.
Jessica's on for this one item as well and can give an update about where we stand in our relationship to Chicago and their e-scooter plan.
Thank you.
Yes, so I am in regular conversations with the Chicago Department of Transportation as it relates to both Divvy Bike Share, e-scooter share, and then other transportation opportunities to share between Evanston and the city of Chicago. And so the next step is to receive a determination on first right of refusal for e-scooter share by Lyft, the operator of Divvy Bikes. And currently, because Chicago has not made a determination on their final three operators, Lyft has not made a determination on providing e-scooter share for the city of Evanston. So that is one item that needs to be determined before moving forward with e-scooter share in Evanston. And because we have this opportunity over the winter and early spring, I do recommend that there is a public outreach period to determine opinions for implementing e-scooter share in the city of Evanston.
Okay. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and we should make sure we're ready for it as best we can. The other question I have, and Ms. Hayek, you may not know the answer to this, but is there any movement on the part of scooter manufacturers to build an ability for whoever's riding it to use a turn signal? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's a significant safety issue, that there's no ability to use a turn signal or even to use your arms as a turn signal. Do you know if there's any discussion on having that a new, better scooter might be coming out with that design?
Yeah, so the e-scooters are continually evolving, and currently there are separate manufacturers that have created add-ons for scooters to provide lights and signalization. However, to my knowledge, there's no e-scooter share company that has incorporated additional turn signal movements on their vehicles. However, what is becoming increasingly more popular is what people may have thought of as a scooter before e-scooters came into the market, what you might also call a moped. And so moped share is also increasing as well, which is electric moped share, I should say, which is a safer alternative to the kick e-scooter.
So is there any way for Chicago, I know we're not the biggest regulator in this space, but is there any way that Chicago could require e-scooters to have lights and a turn signal capability? Or is that under discussion?
That is something that they could require as part of any agreement. Currently, they are requiring that the e-scooter share companies do not allow e-scooters on sidewalks, and they are also requiring that e-scooters have a lock-to capability, just like the electric divvy bikes.
Do they have lights? Do the lift scooters have lights, headlights, or a red light in the back?
So typically the lights are at the very bottom where your feet are, and as you can imagine, that can be very difficult for other people to see. Typically you want those lights to be closer to eye level, especially as more people are driving vehicles that are larger.
Yeah. Is there any way in which, I know I drive home late at night from our council meetings, and it's always alarming to me to see bicyclists who have no lights. And so I'm equally alarmed that we have e-scooters that don't have lights that are built into them. And I'm wondering if there's any way in which we could urge Chicago to have that as a requirement and then adopt it as well. I recognize the problems it would have if we alone had that requirement. But if we could get Chicago to require it, then it would be much easier for us to do it as well.
Alderman Nguyen, if I can chime in on that.
Sure.
So I can say that almost all e-scooters, I was just in the market for one, do have a headlight, which is highly appreciated. A pretty bright one is what I've seen in almost every model that I looked at.
Good.
Again, Ms. Heinck Jessica is completely right that the brake light that is on a lot of these models is down at foot level, which isn't the most visible, but a lot of models do have, pretty, at least the one I have, has pretty visible lights on the side. I will say that most of the, what Jessica referred to as the kind of moped style e-scooters that actually have like a seat, those tend to have a much better kind of safety regime, if you will, safety equipment. And that's really what I imagine, not the kick e-scooters. I really imagine Evanston having the seated e-scooters that are closer to the moped. Those seem much safer. It seems like you certainly wouldn't feel comfortable riding that on a sidewalk, so it's much easier to keep those in the street. And that's my recollection of using the e-scooters in Chicago a few years back. Almost all of the models that I recall seeing were the seated moped e-scooter style.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Councilmember Reed.
Okay, well, this is obviously just the beginning of this conversation. So I think we need to take a vote on accepting and placing on file this update on electric scooter regulations and electric scooter share.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen? Aye. Councilmember Nuzma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Okay, motion
Okay.
passes.
So, seeing as we have no more business before the committee, I declare us adjourned. Thank you very much.